All right, well, I'll be around for additional questions later today. Feel free to grab me. But next I'd like to introduce Mike Lundie from Cognosante and Eric Heflin from the Sequoia project. They're going to be talking about this new thing we have called the Hub dashboard. And please do pay attention to this. It really does an exceptional job of creating transparency. And I have to tell you, we've just been absolutely thrilled with the work that Cognosante, Ready Computing, and InterSystems have all delivered in implementing the Hub in 8 short months. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, good morning. So while they load up the deck, just want to say welcome, everybody. Very happy to see a lot of familiar faces. And for those that don't know me, I'm Eric Heflin. I have the honor, really, of being involved with the eHealth Exchange since about 2010. And in that entire time, one of the recurring needs we've actually had was the ability, as Jay was just talking about, to have key performance indicators that actually give us some insight into the actual eHealth Exchange operational status. So, as a technologist, I got to say this really is a dream come true for me. We're about to talk about. So we actually, for the first time, actually have those insights now. So we can go to the next slide, or I guess you have a advance. Okay, there you go. So basically, our presentation is going to be. I'm going to talk briefly, just to kind of set a little bit of context about the our new analytics dashboard for the Hub, and then pass over to Mike Lundie, who's actually going to show some pretty amazing visualizations of really your operational data as it's going through the Hub, not clinical, but operational data. Then we're going to come back and talk a little more about some kind of unexpected aspects that we've discovered actually having used this. So as an engineer, one of the things I always like to start off is, what are we trying to do here? What's the problem we're trying to solve? I've really had the honor of being involved in the architecture and deployment of around 6 statewide HIEs and probably about 30 HIEs over time. In all those cases, we had one recurring theme, which is really there was not enough really insight into the operational status of the network. And as Jay really said, that that's really a very key element because we need to know if things are working correctly or not. So really, since its inception, this is a problem we've actually struggled with on the eHealth Exchange, even back before Sequoia or really eHealth Exchange took over the project from the ONC. Even back then, we had problems trying to get the data. And so over the last number of years, we've resorted to taking surveys and doing polls. We've actually sent out offers for rewards cards to try to get you all to give us your data in terms of operational volumes. And ultimately, in about 2013, 2014, up until then, we've been publishing the operational metrics you gave us as far as message exchange volumes, that type of thing. But it basically became non-viable. So we really, as you probably are aware, since around 2013 or 14, we haven't really published eHealth Exchange operational metrics other than a few basics such as how many organizations are live in production. And so ultimately, we, if you fast forward just now, we finally have a solution for this. So the implications of this are actually pretty significant. As Jay mentioned earlier in his first slide, where he talked about the trends. Well, it's pretty hard for us to measure our trends without those data points. So it's been a struggle for the eHealth Exchange all along, is really to get insight into growth. I mentioned I've been involved with a number of HIEs over the last number of years. And one of my personal conclusions is you can tell the health of an exchange with 2 KPIs, 2 key performance indicators. One is the financials, are they trending properly? And 2, adoption, true adoption. Not how many people have logged in the system once and walked away and never used it again, but how many people have logged in the system, they're using it, and they're actually seeing trends upward, where message volume and inquiries and so on are actually increasing over time. Well, until now, we didn't really have insight into the latter. So another subtle implication is that capacity planning is hard for you all without guidance from us and from the community. Often when a new implementer comes on board, they ask us, can we give them a sense for how big their data center should be, their virtual or physical hardware. And it's hard for us to give them a precise answer we do our best. We give some analogies, but providing that sizing information to you all as both new and ongoing and participants is really valuable, especially when talk about your future planning and unknowns. So we can actually help reduce those unknowns and risks if we have operational insight. Another challenge we faced last year when talking with InterSystems, our very valued partner for the Health Exchange deployment, was we had to size it with them. Well, we didn't really have firm metrics to do that, so we had to get surveyed our anchor tenants, our key federal agency partners, and we created some metrics as a starting point. But now we actually have operational metrics. I'm so relieved and happy about that. And then, as Shay mentioned earlier, we have a number of strategic areas we could focus on, and having some operational data can help inform those decisions so we know what actually is good to focus on. For example, is PDMP an area that's people are piloting but are not using, or is it an area that people are piloting and using heavily, in which case perhaps there's an opportunity for us to help you all furthermore. So now I'm going to turn it over to one of our partners. As you probably all know, the Health Exchange Hub, our main vendor, he is our very valued partner, InterSystems, and then they have subcontracted with Cognosante and Ready Computing, who are here as well too. And so I'll pass over to Mike Lundie of Cognosante to talk about some amazing work that they've done for us.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Just go over a couple of things of what I want to talk about today. Just give you a quick overview, a little bit about Cognosante, a 2-second obligatory commercial. Talk about some of the business drivers and how we interpreted the requirements that we received from the eHealth Exchange. Talk just a little bit about our approach to the delivery on this, so you get a better insight in terms of how we actually came up with the dashboards that you'll see some screenshots of. We're calling for a demonstration on here, but I guess we opted not to go live with the demonstration. We'll just go through some screenshots. If anyone wants to see any of these, I'm available after the sessions, and we can go through them live if you like as well. And then open it up to some Q&A where we have some opportunity maybe to talk about some future things as well. As far as Cognosante goes, a little bit about us. We've been dedicated to health information exchange and interoperability since even the early days of NHIN. Michelle Kong has been, it's kind of the hallmark of one of the things that she's committed to. It's always good when your CEO is committed to healthcare interoperability, for my career anyways, because that's been my passion throughout my career, so that's always a good thing. We are involved in most of the states on many different levels, from state and as well as federal, VA, DOD. We are a healthcare IT solutions company. We also provide BPO services. But HIE has always been a passion of ours. A couple of interesting things about us too as well, as far as our CMMI level 3 in our development rating, which is for software development, which is a pretty high achievement. And that's something that we certainly employed in the development of these dashboards, working with eHealth Exchange. In terms of some of the business drivers that went into this, it was pretty clear, and as you'll see as we go through this, there was, as Eric was mentioning, there was quite a need for being able to see, as a participant, what are your transaction activity, what is the volume, who are you trading with, could we identify locations, who are the within the participants community, and how could we monitor the overall activity and the performance so that you, as participants in the eHealth Exchange, could look at key business drivers that might affect your business, and for planning, as well as outreach to maybe participants that you might not otherwise be exchanging information with today. There were some definite must-haves, including the ability to scale. We wanted to try to group these in an informative way, some level of, to appeal to the user of it, so that it was intuitive in nature, and it obviously had to be highly secure. So the objectives became, create a set of gauges that would provide that performance, or show you the activity and the performance of your participants, as well as not only as a responder, but also you initiating to the eHealth Exchange. So we'll show you how that works. The last thing on here too, we needed to have a framework for possibly future enhancements. So those are some things that maybe we can talk about later on. But we also had a way for onboarding and providing secure access to this. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm not going to give a primer on Agile development, but we used Agile Scrum methodology on this. So over a series of program increments and a series of Agile sprints, we work closely with the eHealth Exchange team, as well as our partners at Radiant Computing under the direction of InterSystems. So it worked I think pretty well. And we had some lessons learned. And the nice thing about Agile development is that you learn and you iterate, and I think that led to a pretty nice solution that is now in operation. This is essentially what we started with. This came as part of our statement of work. You can see these were some mock-ups that were provided. They really kind of showed, I think, some key things for us. They wanted to see the operational status of the hub. They wanted to be able to see the viewpoint of the participants' activity levels, both as an initiator and as a responder. And then they wanted some kind of cross-participant trading information or volumes, as well as response times. So those were some key things that we picked up and that we read into the mock-ups. And through a series of discussions, we interpreted that into some high-fidelity mock-ups that we in turn worked with the EHX team, and they brought to some of their users, and we got some great feedback, and that led to kind of the process that was iterated on throughout the course of the year as we developed these dashboards before go live. Talking a little bit about the system design or diagram. I'm not going to get into a full technical discussion of this. If anyone's interested in that, I can arrange for that. But the important thing on this, a couple things that I want to bring out. The dashboards are, and the framework and all the operational components for it are hosted in Amazon Cloud. We utilize Kinesis as the inbound streaming process for all of the transactions that we get from the hub. I do want to point out that the information that we do get from the hub, obviously all that is encrypted, but also it is optimized. So we're not actually going through every particular ATNA log entry per se. It is optimized for reporting purposes. We take that information in on a real-time basis, and then on a nightly basis, we go through a process and we build cubes, data analytics cubes that are used in supporting the dashboards. We also have a live monitoring component to this that deals with the status, kind of the status portion of the dashboards that you'll see, but the regeneration of those cubes happens on a nightly basis. And all this is done using Lambda serverless architecture. So we can scale as the network grows. We'll be able to create, and if we need to build these out or create more cubes to support that, or more viewpoints, and those are the architecture supports that. So we met our objective of being highly scalable. Let's see. So the one thing I want to point out too, the slides I'm going to show you, we chose one participant in Alabama, one health record, HIE in Alabama. Cognosante actually hosts that particular HIE and operates that HIE on behalf of Alabama. We're not using any live data. It's all demonstration QA data, so anything that you see on here, just be aware of that. I don't know if Alabama One Health record is here, but just a caveat. So the first thing that you see once you sign on to the HIE or to the EHX Hub dashboard is a participant view. Where we provide two roles for a participant. One is a normal administrative view. The other is as an authorized agent for that participant. The only difference between those two views, as an authorized agent, you're also able to add users and maintain your users' accessibility to your participant data. You see in this initial view, you see your information as a responder or an initiator. We have 2 tabs on there. We also can filter the view by some preset time periods, 90 days, month, 30 days, 7 days, things like that. Or you can specify a time period for the viewpoint as well. Up at the top left, we provide a line graph that shows trending information in terms of the patient discovery responses. That's useful in knowing, of the responses that either you initiated or responded to, what has been the trend over time. And we show not only how many were made, how many were found in error, how many weren't found. Below that are the documents. So this is not only how many were queried for, but also how many were actually retrieved. So you can see that particular trend as well. And then down below, it's kind of hard to see from here where I'm looking here. Oh yeah, we're talking about the actual response times as well. Now up at the top, we also have last activity, which is if you refresh the screen constantly, you can see when there was last activity associated with the participant, both either as an initiator or responder. And then there is a status history, which basically gives you a little historical perspective of any change in status from transactions that have come through the hub, either as an initiator or responder. So if you were, say, temporarily in an error state or an error transaction, you would see the last date and time that happened and how long ago it was. And then if you're in normal operations mode, responding or initiating and not getting any errors, you'd see that in green as well. Lastly, on the bottom right, you can see, depending if you're in initiator view or responder view, you could see either the top 10 responders that you are receiving responses from, or if you are acting as in a responder viewpoint, you can see who are the top 10 initiators that are sending you requests for information. All right. Each of those initial, we call them widgets on the dashboard, actually go down to a more detailed level. So in this case, we're looking at the patient discovery as a responder. So now you can see, in this case, all the different information related to, was there an error? Was there, how many different patient discovery requests were there over that particular filtered time period? And how many were responded to. Just below that, we also give you information about the response time and the transaction size itself. So this is useful information in terms of network activity, monitoring that, as well as the size of the data that's coming back in the responses. All that information can be filtered with the filtering on the side that you can see as well, and then the dashboard responds accordingly. The next widget had to do with documents. So we were dealing with patients before, now we're dealing with document as a responder. So the same type of thing. How many document requests or how many document queries for documents were there? How many came back and how many were in error? Same kind of thing. And then this is the actual, it's hard to read from up here with the lights in your eyes, but this is the details that come back with, I'm sorry, I can't read it. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, this is with the retrieval of the documents now. So we had the query for the documents, and now we actually have the retrieval of the document responses as well. This is the same view, but I changed the filtering on it so you could kind of see how it renders with a larger time frame. This is over a 90-day period, so you can kind of get a feel for how the charts change. You can see the trends over time. Let's see, going back to the main screen, you can see on the top 10 initiators, you can drill down on that, and now you can get a complete list of all of the participants who have initiated requests for information from you as the participant, as a responder. So here's a list of those ranked in high to low. Here's the patient discovery as initiator, very similar. And this is the viewpoint of the hub status. Another thing that eHealth Exchange wanted to provide the participants was a viewpoint into the hub. So here on this particular screen, you have information about the number of transactions or PDs, requests for documents, and then the responses as well. And on the top, or on the side, on the left, you also have a status of the participants. So if any participants are either in an error state or not responding, or some warnings are in their normal operations, you have that information available on the left. Okay. Some of the things that you see on this, again, this is data out of our test system, so those look like OIDs. Those aren't like that in the production environment. They're actually the names of the participants. This is another viewpoint that we give the participants. This is an inquiry into actual transactions into the hub itself. This is probably one of the most used viewpoints or dashboard views that we've given folks. It gives detailed information about actual inbound transactions to the hub and responses back to the hub that pertain to you as a participant. A lot of filtering capabilities on this as well. You can see here are some of them. I showed just some. You can, if you just wanted to see some of the filtered by where are all the errors or responses, we give you, those are the categories of error responses that we get from the hub, and so you can filter on those and see those as well. The next thing along the top menu, right, I'm going from left to right, is we move into our interpretation of the cross-participant dashboard viewpoints. It was pretty clear from the original mock-ups that we got from the eHealth Exchange that they wanted to really kind of show and demonstrate, how are the participants exchanging information with each other. So we tried to come up with some visualizations that help represent that in a easy to look at or easy to use way. This is a chord diagram which shows, again, the top 10 trading partners or participants that you're exchanging information with as the participant. In some cases, we actually found that the participant trades with itself, so that actually shows up in some cases. But we actually showed the top 9, and then we showed 10 as all the other trading partners. So in this particular viewpoint, you can see the majority of those show up in that particular chord diagram. This map, or this cross-participant viewpoint was, we wanted to show kind of like an airline map, if you will, that shows, as an initiator, who am I exchanging information with, or who am I requesting information from, and who is responding to those requests for information. And so that that diagram, or that airline map, if you will, flight chart, attempts to illustrate that. So you can actually get a really nice viewpoint. There is a heat map associated with that. It doesn't show up too well on this particular screen, but the more intense the orange circle, the more transactions are moving in and out of that. So you do get some level of who am I really trading with, if you will. And below that is all the statistics that is used to drive the visualization. So you have not only the visualization, but you have all the data associated with that right below it as well. Again, all of that can be filtered using the filters on the right as well. This particular one also is dealing with a couple of different visualizations that we were trying to show here. In the top one, it was more related to here are the transaction size, or the response time, and the size of the transaction. So we wanted to come up with, of the top 10 responders, what is the transaction size coming back, which you see in terms of the vertical elevation, but then also the size of the transaction. It's a visualization. It's not designed necessarily to be, it's designed to give you the size of the circle, meaning the volume is greater, or the size of the transaction is greater. So it gives you that level of visualization. So it gives you some key indicators in terms of what's happening with those particular, your top 10 trading partners in that regard. And then same below in terms of a breakdown of the types of transactions that you're getting, whether they're patient discoveries or query for documents or responses. You get some volume breakdown on that as well. All right. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Eric, and we'll talk about some of the expected results.
Great. Well, thank you. And actually, I want to go back to a couple of slides, if we can. See if that works to go back. I mean, how cool is this? You can actually now log in as a member of the eHealth Exchange. You can drill down and actually have a map within a few seconds showing you all of your key exchange partners, and the size of the bubble indicates the relative volume size. I mean, isn't that a pretty cool feature? I mean, I've been looking for that for a long time, so yeah. So now, I've just got to say, too, that Mike and his team at Cognosante have gone way above what we expected to do. They've far exceeded their expectations. So I just want to say they've done an excellent job, and we've been very happy with them. And here's another example, too. Mike just went through this, but I want to emphasize a couple of key things on top of what he said as well, which is that this gives you a lot of insight. And we built this dashboard not only for us as the eHealth Exchange staff, but also for you. This is your dashboard. Anybody in this room that's on the eHealth Exchange today can either directly through an administrator at your company or through us, you can actually not only get an account, you can actually administer your own users to get login and get access to the same data you're seeing here, both for production and validation. So anyway, I just got to say, I'm pretty excited about this. So thanks again, Mike, for that.
You bet.
So I want to talk a little bit about some benefits that we expected, and then actually also some benefits that we, quite frankly, just did not expect. And I have to also kind of laugh because, Mike said that this was iterative. And it's like, boy, was it iterative, because, you saw the initial mock-ups that myself and Mike Iskanich. Mike, can you raise your hand if you're here? Mike Iskanich actually over there helped create as well too. We're engineers, and it shows. He's a visual designer, that shows as well too. So they took our mock-ups and just far exceeded what we had hoped to accomplish with them. So thank you so much for that. So some of the benefits we expected is we finally now are getting operational insight into the exchange for the first time. I mean, this literally is a dream come true for me. We can actually now see the health of our network. We can look at key performance indicators. We can start looking at trends over time. It's just really wonderful to be able to see this data. As you saw a few slides ago, you can also see not only just raw data, which by the way, those tables are designed to be downloaded. You can also take screenshots for your own presentations to your stakeholders, but also you can see geographical dimensions of the data. You can see how long messages take to transact with your partners. You can see which partners are slow, which partners are fast. You can see how big the messages are, all without doing anything on your side that's really technical. Essentially, a non-technical user can log in to the dashboard and see everything that Mike just showed you. And those are screenshots, very representative of what's actually there in production validation today. You can also see patient match rates. That's one of the subtler little aspects of this, is we actually have broken down in the dashboard initiator versus responder. Probably in this future we'll have push as well too, as Jay mentioned that's on the dash or on the roadmap. You can actually then break each of those down by discovery for patient, retrieve list of documents, and retrieve documents. So all three of those are broken out separately, so we can actually detect patient match rates. And that probably can be an area we target for future exploration and improvement as well too. So on top of the expected benefits, these actually were all, quite frankly, surprises to myself. Maybe not to everybody on the team, but there were surprises to me, and I think to most of us on the team. So one unexpected benefit is that basically this has become our go-to. It's like our dashboard in our car is for the exchange. So as you probably know, we're doing a virtual connect-a-thon right now. to get all the eHealth Exchange initiators engaged. I think we had 65 on the first kickoff call, so we've gotten great engagement. And the Connectathon, the goal is to actually live there at that engineering event to actually get organizations have the data flowing by the time the call is over, if at all possible. And the dashboard was a key component because what could happen is a new organization would say, I'm an initiator. How do I know if it's working or not? Like, well, here's your login. Go log in. They could actually log in the dashboard themselves from their own perspective as a participant, and they could tell themselves if they're working correctly. And in many cases, I mentioned earlier that I have been involved in building about 30 HIEs over my career. Almost all of those, that was not even available to the HIE or to the eHealth Exchange gateway. We could not, as a deployed gateway, tell for hours or even days what our operational volumes were looking like. Well, in this dashboard, we can tell in near real time. So that's just a very powerful tool. So we found that not only has it been good for kind of batch analytics, which has been kind of the vision I've had for this, but again, they far exceeded that at Mike's team, and it's actually close to real-time analytics as well too, with very little delay. So we can log in, we can see the operational health of the dashboard or of a participant in basically a few clicks. We can also allow us to tell if a partner is having problems in essentially 1 or 2 clicks. Not only us, but also you can. There's one common thing we've heard from you all as we interviewed you and asked what should be in this in our discussions over the years is what do you need in terms of insight? And one of the key things you said, you need to know if one of your partners is down, because a lot of times you'll detect that or suspect that before your other partner will actually detect that. And so the dashboard gives you that insight. Also, we found it's a very powerful tool for debugging and diagnostics. The traditional world I've come from, if we're going to diagnose a connection, that means calling somebody in the IT department, have them explain which log file, which server they need to harvest for which date range, talk about PHI considerations to make sure HIPAA is properly preserved as a chain of custody for that log file to migrate from that data center over to you so you can debug something that happened last week. Well, with the dashboard, we actually can do that in seconds. The dashboard shows us not only the overall message transactions going back and forth, but it has a precise technical ID. And so that ID, we then can actually pull up a log file, search for that one single ID, boom, we're right at the spot we need to in order to diagnose or debug an issue. So it's really just been our go-to diagnostic tool, which again, actually was not something we planned on. It became so useful and so quick and so real time, it just has become our go-to tool for that. We also have near real-time drill down into operational status of participants. If we have a participant where there's some questions that they may have or we may have, maybe they need to investigate something, well, we can log on or help them log into the dashboard, and we can actually answer a lot of those questions in real time, such as, hey, I think I've got 10 partners. It seems like partner 7 is slow. How do we know that's true or not? It's going to take me a week to get the answer from my internal team. Can you help? And in fact, they can help themselves. This is designed to be a self-help tool, and we're here to help as well, too. And then this has actually become a really valuable tool for stakeholder presentations. We're finding quite a few organizations were actually, asking, can we get some raw data? We want to download it, put it in Excel, put some nice visualizations on top of it, take a screenshot, put it into a PowerPoint deck. Well, one of our explicit goals after understanding what Mike's team was able to do was actually, those are designed for screenshots for you to take immediately. So in many cases, if you log in the dashboard, if you navigate around a little bit for your data, you actually will have a screenshot you can take, drop into PowerPoint, and you're done. If you have a stakeholder group that needs to know, who all you're exchanging with, well, there's a slide that shows you that. If there's, or a graphic, the map one will show you that, in a geographic dimension. And then we're finding that participants are using this for self-service, for getting insight into their own exchange and their own partners. Also, this is useful not only for technologists, but also for non-technical people. We now are finding that a number of people that are involved at a business side, at a project management side, or really at non-technical sides, actually they still see a lot of value in logging the dashboard. We actually had a call a couple days ago with Veterans Health Affairs and one of their project management folks, and she had these amazing insights that she was able to get into the operation of the VHA and the eHealth Exchange. And she's not technical, but this tool gave her that insight to do that analysis in just a matter of a few days. That otherwise, I don't know what the process would have been, but I think it probably would have been more onerous for her. And then finally, we can actually log in, like right now on my laptop, I can log in, and basically in one click, I can see the health of the entire eHealth exchange for everybody's connected to the hub. So that's just been really, again, kind of a dream come true for me personally as a technologist. So anyway, thank you again. I want to give Mike and his team a hand because that's just amazing work that you've done. So now we're going to switch gears one final time. And Mike has ideas what they can do even beyond what I've shown you and beyond what we deployed. He's going to talk about that briefly, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. So, Mike?
Yep. I'm not sure, do we have internet access on here or no? Or do you have the PDF, if you could bring that up?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, while we're waiting, the patient matching, have you had any revelations or surprises yet in looking at the patient matching rate? Or I haven't. Have you had time by chance to even look at those numbers and take it into consideration?
Yeah, actually, thanks for asking. So that was actually the revelation I had just a few days ago myself, is that we've been seeking all along to determine what patient matching rates look like, to determine if they're adequate and so on. And up until now, that's involved partner A talking to partner B, identifying perhaps specific patients or gold master data set that they can actually compare and assess against. And that's basically become kind of a difficult, non-scalable process. And so actually my realization, and the answer to your question is, I realized a few days ago, we actually now have at least the entry point to that investigation really at our fingertips, a few clicks away. Because if one of the screens Mike went through here actually shows the patient matching success and warnings and errors broken out by quite a lot of details. It's not just basically success or failure. It actually breaks it down into about 35 error codes, such as timeout or query timeout or certificate failure or message structure failure or patient match failure. And so now we at least have a starting point for that investigation rather than having to actually start by picking up the phone and saying, hey, who's the name of your patient matching person there? How do we talk to him or her? Can we get on their schedule? So I think basically the starting point is going to become much easier.
Thanks. So one of the things that we started to think about, and as we realized, when you start mining through some of this metadata, some of the useful things that you might be able to get out of it, and we started thinking, all right, as far as the dashboard and the capabilities that it has today, are there other things that we might be able to do? And furthermore, could we even abstract this even down to your own HIE itself? So in effect, kind of abstract the dashboarding capability not only to the transactions flowing in and out of the eHealth exchange, but also maybe within your own exchanges as well. So we started thinking about what kinds of maybe premium services or things that we could possibly offer or help you solve some of the challenges that you may have when it comes to monitoring the health of your HIE, not only cross participants or cross community, but also within your own service delivery area. So we started thinking about some of these others, and I'd love to get your feedback either after the session or maybe if you had any comments here. We started looking at, from a document composition point of view, would it be useful to get information about the actual documents being retrieved? It's one thing to have some metadata in terms of the numbers of, but now what if you could get some statistical information and some visualizations and showing maybe trends over time? What is the composition of the data that's being retrieved? And also get some details about the types, the rankings, the top 10, as well as how many are actually being responded to by type. So that was an idea that we had that we thought might be useful information. If you could go to advance to the next page, please. I don't think, can I do that with the clicker? Yeah. So here's another one that kind of measures interoperable exchange. Again, these are kind of themes that come from the eHealth exchange itself, from their mission. You know, what are some measures of interoperability exchange that potentially might be useful? How many documents or how many patients are actually yielding patients found? How many are actually leading to query for documents, and how many of those are actually leading to actual retrieval of documents? How many are being retrieved from a centralized repository, or maybe some from a federated repository? So like, you know, certain facilities within your own HIE who maintain their own XDS.B repository, how many documents are being retrieved from those as opposed from your own centralized database? And poly-responses, how many queries for information or for documents retrieved from various different facilities. So that might be interesting data to have available to you as HIE administrators. Next. This is just kind of a data view of the same thing, of the visualization, so you have that. Next slide, real quick. This is something I know that we, now mind, these are concepts, these are mock-ups. I should have caveated that from the, so I'm interested in getting your input or feedback on any of these if you think these would be useful. This is a set of gauges related to adoption. We took a service delivery area activity, say in this case this is Alabama, the state of Alabama, by 3-digit zip code, and where there are facilities contributing or responding or not responding or not reporting. So this might be useful information where maybe it might guide you in some of your outreach programs or education, or if you've got a situation where maybe someone is refusing to comply, this might point out certain gray or black areas as well. So showing the various different you know, ways of looking at contributing and responding to requests for information, having these set of gauges might be useful to you as well in that regard. Next. This was another one that we talked about with respect to reliability. We do touch on this in the set of gauges that we provide today to eHealth Exchange for those types of transactions, cross-community transactions. But within your own facilities, you know, what's the reliability factor? How are the systems responding? Are they, what is the average response time? And then, you know, what of the facilities that are within your HIE or that you're trading with, is this a way that, you know, can help you understand, you know, the reliability factor of your participants within your HIE? I think there's one more, is there? Yep. And here's one that talks about participation level. So the other one talks about adoption. This is more in terms of, we're thinking, it gives you some insight in terms of the composition and makeup of the participation within your HIE. So whether you're talking about hospitals, long-term care facilities, ambulatory providers, gives you some relative ranking in who's participating and who's actively exchanging information within the HIE. So those were some ideas or some concepts that we wanted to throw at you and think about, and obviously if you have some feedback on that, we'd love to hear about it.
Great, well, thank you. So at this point, we're open for a Q&A. We've got a few minutes for that, so if you have any questions, please, there's some microphones in the room, so yes.
Yeah, hi Eric, this is Arun from Davita. Hi.
Welcome.
A couple of questions. One is on the adoption and the outreach front. How discrete is the data? For example, are you break it down into the constituent parts of a HIE? Let's say CliniSync in Ohio has 150 hospitals. Can we see the 150 hospitals, or would you just say CliniSync?
So just to paraphrase, so you're asking, can it be broken down all the way to the resolution of a provider or a hospital?
Yeah.
Currently, that's a great question, and you know, the future may be different, but for today, it's broken down to the level of a participant. And so the actual, the key in kind of the database is actually the home community ID of the participant in the directory. Now that being said, that doesn't prevent us from in the future going down further, more detail as an enhancement. And then one of the things I think Jay and Katie Visner and Katie Odom Bell are working on is actually having a directory enhancement that goes much more detailed. The issue there is we're actually, kind of again dependent upon you, our valued participants, to give us, some of that data. But once we have that data through whatever means, we can actually then, excuse me, instead of having directory just of participants like we do now, that can go down multiple levels deep, and then the dashboard can be enhanced at that time to take into account the levels of hierarchy. So it's at the participant level.
Yeah, and I would say. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to add to and echo what Eric was saying. In the last visualization that I showed you, where it was talking about the participation level, that's kind of where we were going with that, but it would require that level of detail or that level of granularity.
Yeah, I mean, the second question I had was, with all the operational insights you're going to get from this, what are plans of the eHealth exchange? Maybe Jay or you can share. For example, one of the things that I've been thinking is with respect to patient matching, right? So I think each of us have our own algorithm. Some are stricter, some are more lenient. So maybe is there like an opportunity to standardize some of that as an exchange? I'm just wondering if you have other thoughts like that that you could do with the operational insights you're going to get.
Well, great timing for asking that. Matter of fact, we actually just had a call with one of our federal agency partners last week where they shared probably about close to 30 potential enhancements to the operational metrics. For example, one thing that they asked for was trending. Can you detect if a threshold is about to be exceeded, such as maybe the participant's volume between that agency and the participant is typically 10,000 messages a day, and all of a sudden it's trending towards maybe 3,000 a day. Perhaps it means that there's a problem on their side, like maybe patient matching rates have gone down. So how we've left that is we're going to get together this week to have a discussion with myself and a few of the technical staff supporting the Health Exchange to actually flesh out and define some of those requirements kind of at a business technical level, at a high level, and actually hand that list to Jay as our project executive director to basically to consider putting into the roadmap. And so actually I'd like to go ahead and make an invitation available to you as well. I'm happy to get together with you this week, and perhaps we can get your input as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Kevin from CMS. There's a related question. Are you planning to have thresholds with notifications? It seems like this is a key opportunity. There's a lot of data here, and there might be some best practices that would let us know, hey, if feed just stopped sending things because of an upgrade or whatever, but that would require some kind of a threshold and notification model.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things the InterSystems has built in. We're not using today, but it's actually part of the core technology, is to alert upon inactivity. So that's actually something built in. We've already considered adding that, and that's probably going to be something we put in the pipeline. A great question. Thanks, Kevin.
Hi, Stephen Lane from Sutter Health.
Hi, Dr.
I
Lane.
have a couple of different questions. One is, this is fabulous, great work, very, very exciting to see this. You guys have done a great job, and I'm a huge fan of metrics, so it's great to be able to see this. Have you been collaborating at all with other folks in the industry who are very keen on trying to figure out how to measure interoperability? I'm involved with efforts at CLASS, at HIMSS, at ONC, where they each have teams that are really looking at this. And I think there's a great opportunity for all of those groups to coordinate their efforts. Have you been part of any discussions?
We have been a part of at least one at my level, and Jay and others may be in discussions at other levels. At the last ONC Interoperability Conference, I had honor participating in the track on measuring interoperability. And one of the suggestions we offered that time is that we would love to collaborate with them further. And I also offered up kind of I believe a novel idea, which is that perhaps the ONC can work with the standards bodies and those implementing standards as well too, to make sure that the standards actually have a mechanism for measuring things. For example, right now, if you do a request for patient discovery, how do you know you got the right answer? Or if you retrieve a document and incorporate that into your system, how do you know it was actually parsed and incorporatable correctly, the way it was intended by the sender? And I think that's actually a solvable problem, and the suggestion I'd offer at that point was actually to have the standards bodies provide a hook or some type of a mechanism by which essentially the partners could close that loop to ensure interoperability actually occurred, such as the receiver of a document could say, not only did I receive the document, I understood it and successfully parsed it.
That would be wonderful. I mean, I'd love to facilitate, connectivity, and we can work on that. I had a couple other questions.
I think we'd love to be involved with other similar opportunities as well too. So perhaps you could reach out to myself or Jay or others to facilitate that.
Perfect. A couple other things. Jay in his comments was talking about some of what's coming in the future, FHIR-based exchange, patient access. Have those been considered in the dashboard? It's very difficult to measure FHIR-based exchange these days. Nobody's really supporting it very well, and document-based, this is awesome, but what about the next level?
What's this FHIR thing? I keep hearing people talking about it. I got to read up on this thing sometime. No, seriously. One of the reasons we actually procured our vendor, this was part of the formal evaluation process, was in fact that the technology had legs. We were not looking for a solution that met exactly and only the requirements of the initial deployment, because part of the vision, I think, of this platform, the Health Exchange Hub, is it's a basis to build upon it for all the other things Jay talked about earlier, such as PDMP, exchange for clinical data or prescription data, record locator services, and FHIR. So our vendor actually has FHIR support already built into it. It actually has HL7 V2 support. For example, perhaps we need to get an HL7 V2 feed for some reason, like perhaps it's mandated. It has the ability to direct secure email transport, even things like secure FTP. So the technology we've based this on has, I'd estimate, probably close to 75 modules, of which we're using probably 10 or 15. It has everything from natural language processing on top of analytics warehouses, things like that we're not using today. But our hope is we can, with your all support, turn a switch on some of those in the future.
So, and I assume that for patient queries, once those start to happen more, that we'll be able to see those, whether they're queries for documents or queries for resources.
Hope so. Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Eric, Margaret Donahue.
Hello.
If I can speak for my VHA colleagues here, one of the burdens that the VA has is just the amount of duplicate documents that come into the system. Are you planning at all to use these capabilities to help the participants manage duplicates?
I'll put that one to Jay. To my knowledge, we don't have a firm plan today. Largely, I think it's going to remain a pass-through. But what we are doing, and we've made a pretty substantial investment in this already, is content quality and interoperability and testing. And Didi will be talking about that later. So our game plan for, I think, the 2020, and Drake, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically to make sure the content quality is sufficient, it's complete, it's accurate, and interoperable, and then potentially address other issues like deduplication after that. But Jay?
Yeah, unfortunately, I hadn't really thought about using the hub dashboard to identify potential duplicates. That's something we can certainly look at. I am struggling with how we would actually accomplish it. So in other words, if you were to query a health system and a regional HIE and retrieve back information for both patients, we might be able to say if a section is duplicated, like they both have XYZ drug listed. But beyond that, I'm not quite sure how we would do it. But Eric and I can chat.
Yeah, well, the good thing, though, is, again, our platform has legs. It actually has a record locator service. We just are not using it today. It has MPI, it has clinical data repository, a clinical data kind of a simple viewer technology as well, too. So I think we probably could, if there was, a business case for that, pull us together and do deduplication. So thanks for the question. Well, we're actually, probably last question, and then we're going to go to break until 10:45, and then at that point, Jay Nakashima and Dave Castle are going to be talking about the last mile. So, Chandran?
Jude Sandarajan, Social Security Administration. I had a question about the data and if open APIs will be available. So if you want to export it into our environment and use some of our sensitive data to match it with some of the data that you've created. And also was curious about the refresh rate on the data.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So to paraphrase, you're asking, is this data something that you can access for the operational dashboard and incorporate it? And then also, how often is it refreshed? The data, our goal, we actually monitor the queues. The goal is to have it close to real time. So some things are calculated overnight, but the vast majority of things are actually in real time. So it's almost instantaneous. And if it slows down, we actually, for example, as was discussed earlier, scale the solution dynamically in real time to catch up. It can grow and shrink as a function of on demand. And then as far as incorporating it, that's indeed part of the intent. And if you look on a lot of the slides, screenshots, there'll be a button we didn't talk about that looks kind of like basically a download or button. You can click on that, and these tables are available to you in raw data, so you can analyze them.
Great,
So yes. All right, well, I think we're at time. Thank you all very much for being here. We're on break until 10:45.